welcome to CEO Interviews. Really happy to have you on Seeking Alpha, really happy to have you on the show. So thank you for taking the time and joining us.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here and appreciate your time.
So one of the things that we're trying to do with this series is talk to disruptors. And I feel like you guys are really trying to disrupt something. For those viewers, for those listeners that know about Wrap, if you want to, and for those that don't, if you want to give like a little bit about Wrap and what you guys are trying to bring to the marketplace, that would be great to catch us up with what you guys have going on.
Sure. So what Wrap Technologies started about 4 years ago. We're a public company and we are trying to solve really difficult problems, right? So since everybody has been working with law enforcement, they've been trying to find ways to reduce the amount of force that's used in having to take somebody into custody and get them help, especially somebody who's in crisis, be it a mental health crisis, on drugs or on alcohol. And if you look at all the tools they have today, a lot of them are very archaic, right? It's the caveman's baton that we made collapsible. It's spraying a chemical irritant into somebody's face to cause a burning sensation. The taser puts electricity into the body. Ultimately, it's firing lead at a high velocity to do a lot of damage to the tissue. So all of those components result in either some type of pain compliance or serious bodily injury or ultimately death. And if you're trying to just stop somebody and get them help, those tools aren't really helpful in a lot of those situations. So the tools that we're working on, we're trying to figure out ways to stop someone without hurting them. So the BolaWrap fires out a 7.5 foot Kevlar tether that wraps around the subject from a distance of 10 to 25 feet without putting anything into the body. So it just wraps around the person, kind of like the movies, right? So we've seen it in Hollywood with Spider-Man and Batman, and trying to put this cord around them, attach to them and restrain them. So like throwing handcuffs from a distance without using pain compliance to end that confrontation very early before it escalates to those other higher levels of force that can do serious injury to the suspect.
So you mentioned Taser just now when you were talking about that. I know that you co-founded Taser, and that's part of the background. I imagine that led you to Wrap. Do you want to talk to us about kind of what led you to Wrap, what led you to Taser, what led you to creating this and being interested in this part of the marketplace?
Yes, so my brother and I co-founded Taser back in 1993, and at the time, it still is, it's a great tool, right? It's one tool in the toolbox. You know, we will say you don't take a house, build a house with just a hammer. There's multiple tools, and the Taser is a great tool, yet it still relies on putting electricity into a body, so it's considered a higher level of force to subdue somebody. But the reason the concept even came around is my brother and I grew up watching Star Trek and Star Wars and said, why can't we set something to stun? And so that was really the development. So the Taser, in my words, is kind of the wired version of the Star Trek phaser. And it works great, but it's a higher level of force in trying to stop somebody. In other words, they need to be an active aggressor or posing a real threat to themselves or someone else. So there's this main gap between showing up on scene and verbal commands and using a taser, a chemical spray, or a baton. And that's really where the BolaWrap fits in. And my career has been spent, you know, obviously right out of college with Taser for 20 years, and now getting involved with the Wrap because this is, I believe, that next step of not using pain compliance to stop somebody and provide a tool that is going to give law enforcement the chance to end that use of force without hurting anybody, get them the help that they need. And so I think, you know, again, there's no magic bullet. That doesn't exist today. But these tools have an absolute role. We fill a great role that's early in the intervention before it escalates. And we're really working on a whole platform that I hope we'll be talking about today that's involving training and other things to really help get law enforcement better equipped to handle these really difficult situations.
Do you feel like when you started, it was your thought process around what it takes to manage kind of public defense or public security? Do you feel like that's evolved through Taser? Like when you were sitting there with your brother looking at watching Star Wars, watching Star Trek, and thinking about this thing and what that means to kind of like subdue somebody, and then being in the marketplace and selling and seeing what it feels like in terms of bringing these products to marketplace. Because I think anybody who's heard you before, you have a very thoughtful approach. I don't feel like anytime I've heard you speak about this, it's come from a place where it seems like there's been a lot of thought into that. And I'm wondering how much that has evolved from your beginning in the field until now.
There's been an incredible amount of involvement over time, right? So law enforcement, when you meet with those officers, they're trying, right, to do good. They're trying not to hurt anybody. They're trying to enforce the law and really be those protectors for us. They're the ones that we see every day. You know, the military, that's a different role, typically abroad, where the law enforcement's in our own communities trying to, you know, help people that are in trouble or protect us from somebody that does have bad intent. And so it's an extremely difficult job that has gotten more and more difficult over time. Clearly, from when I started in my career back in, you know, the 90s, the only tools they had available then was a chemical spray, a baton, and a gun. It was very limited. And so everybody kind of grew up, you know, respecting the police, but if they got into a confrontation, it was more of a fist fight, let's say, where that's evolved into now tools or on both sides, right? So from the criminal side as well as from the law enforcement side. So we've taken an approach of looking at that and saying, you know, we put man on the moon. We've had all these great advancements in technology, but within this law enforcement providing protection area, there really hadn't been anything. And that's what started with the Taser. And now I believe with the BolaWrap, we're that next evolution in trying to stop somebody without hurting them. Because again, all those other tools inflict the pain. And certainly within the last year since the George Floyd incident of last summer, you know, this has been kind of under the radar for years and years through the Black Lives Matter movement and other groups calling attention to use of force or disproportionate use of force. And then when George Floyd happened, that not only affected the United States, that affected all folks around the world. You look at law enforcement worldwide, they're all facing very similar problems. Also, mental health has become something that is now, you know, it used to be taboo. You didn't really talk about it. And now people talk about it on a regular basis, rightly so. You know, my mom has had Alzheimer's. She passed away last year, but I remember an incident where she attacked my dad and we called the police for help. And when we're calling them for help, it's because they were the de facto social services at that point in time, that they were the ones to respond. And the last thing I wanted them to do was hurt my mom when she's just, you know, in a mental crisis, but we wanted to get her help. So looking at these tools and the technologies that we can bring to help law enforcement, it's certainly never been more pressure on law enforcement to change than there has been during this last year. You know, it's been absolutely public outcry from the highest federal official levels through all of the communities. You look at the riots, the protests, you know, there's been blips of this in history, but this has been pretty much sustained over the past year. The George Floyd trials going on currently. So again, bringing attention back to this issue. It's being discussed here in the United States at the federal level, you know, being debated on bills in the Hill. So there's, again, never been more pressure. And it's very easy to point out the problems, but we're working on providing solutions to these very difficult problems that are going to help solve issues in our communities, right? With the law enforcement that live in the communities, work with those communities. So we hear both sides, and we're just trying to bring tools that are going to help end and give these officers the chance to stop someone without hurting them, end these situations before they escalate, and give them another tool to do their job safely so that they can go home safe, in addition to the suspect going home safe and getting the help they need.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it couldn't be more timely for all the reasons you mentioned, everything that's going on in the States. And as we talked a little bit before, you know, I live in Tel Aviv. I'm coming from Israel, and you know, in addition to kind of what you guys are dealing with in the States, I think COVID worldwide is exactly as you mentioned, like bringing mental health to the fore and all these things that people are dealing with, and also protests in the street. And I know, like, we specifically dealt with a lot of police protesting and clashing with citizens here. And there was a feeling of this different type of feeling in the city. And I feel like it's interesting to think about, not just, you know, to complain or to kind of feel like things are being thought about in the wrong way, but to, exactly as you said, to bring solutions, that it's about kind of approaching it in a totally different way, and not just about using force to quell somebody or to stop somebody from doing something, but to try and approach that with a little bit more understanding. And something that I was really intrigued by was how the BolaWrap even came to be. The inventor, it is a really interesting backstory that I feel like most people that are following the wrap story may not even know how interesting the inventor is behind, like, one of your flagship products. Do you want to talk a little bit about how BolaWrap came to be and your relationship with Woody Norris, the inventor, and kind of how you guys came to partner together?
Yeah, so yeah, Woody's a fantastic guy. Like his whole career has been inventing really, really cool stuff. And I've got the utmost respect for Woody. And I'd heard about him in the industry because he was involved in inventing the LRAD, the long range acoustical device, which we all had heard about. That's a system that basically puts enough sound out there that it's going to keep you from wanting to get approached to somebody. So it's again, it's another way he was looking at trying to help stop people without hurting them. So in a lot of his inventions, I think he has over 100 patents. He's really been looking at this space. And then after he saw what my brother and I did with Taser, he was again trying to come back to this and say, is there a better way to do this? Can I make that LRAD fit into something that can be officer carried? Because right now it's mounted on a ship. It's a huge, large container. It's a very cumbersome system. So it's not really applicable for law enforcement to be able to drive trucks around town to be able to use something like that. So when he saw what we were providing with Taser, he was trying to figure out a way to do that with the LRAD, and the technology just hasn't advanced. And I think it'll get there someday, but it's not there yet to be able to do that. But then he started looking at, Argentina and the way the Argentinian cowboys used to capture animals with the boladero. And so, that'd been around for thousands of years. So he came up with the concept of the BolaWrap, is taking what the cowboys in Argentina did decades or hundreds of years ago and put that into a handheld system that now we can use it to stop somebody without hurting them again. And that was really the emphasis for his development. So he's still working on next generation products. He's in his 80s now. So he enjoys his time of inventing and really spending some quality time right now on some next generation technologies that we'll hope to bring to market, because he's that forward thinker that, you look at people in history, that Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and others, and Woody with over 100 different patents, that you just want to let those guys really kind of help create that future. And then I like to look at that and say, now how do we implement that and get that out there for the masses to really make a difference? So it's really a great scenario, and just incredible work that Woody's been doing, and especially with this product, because it's, to me, that next step in law enforcement and security. For I can't tell you how many people, private security, want this, school teachers and others, that will get there one day. And that's what's really exciting about where we are as a company.
That must have been like a great meeting of the minds. I mean, if you're a kid watching Star Wars and Star Trek and having these ideas, you must have geeked out a little bit and talking to like such an accomplished inventor.
It was. Even if you go back to the Taser story, right? When my brother and I started that company, I was 26, my brother was 23. A guy by the name of Jack Cover invented that original technology in the 60s, and he was working at NASA, and he came up with this. So he was 76 at the time we started that company. So for me, it's a repeat of the story, which is just absolutely humbling that I get to do this potentially twice, where Woody, again, is in his late 80s. He's developed this technology, and now we're really perfecting it and bringing it out there. So inventors are truly inventors, right? They focus on the invention, and then somebody's got to help them bring that idea or that invention and make it in production, manufacturing, and then get it out there and make it work for the environment. And that's really what I've been lucky enough to do in my career. And yeah, watching Woody work is just, it's really a lot of fun. And some of the stuff that he comes up with is just, mind blowing. And we're really excited to keep working with him and keep coming and bringing those ideas to the market.
That's awesome. That must be really exciting to be around somebody of that level of innovation. Speaking of your career and what you're bringing and what your skills and skill sets are, you've been at Wrap for a couple of years, but you just recently were named not the interim CEO, but the full-time CEO. And the CEO change before that was kind of short-lived. Do you want to talk to investors or interested viewers and listeners about kind of that management change and why it was so quick, and maybe why you weren't named CEO to begin with?
Well, when I first started, like literally my first day, I jumped on a plane and I went overseas. I went to Singapore for a trade show when I started with Wrap, because I knew from my history at Taser, I took Taser to over 100 countries around the world. So I was always kind of doing the outside sales customer interface. And so I was hearing what they were wanting, and I knew this was going to have a big place internationally, because typically international law enforcement is quite different than US law enforcement. It's a much more consolidated force. Typically, they're not armed. And they're always looking for ways to end things because they don't have the option necessarily of a firearm, such as in the UK, where they just, the majority of officers don't carry a weapon. And so I was really focused on the international until COVID hit, and I was literally went to 30 some countries in my first 6 months. And that's one of the reasons we've already sold this to 38 different countries already, is because I knew the international demand was going to be there and the want was going to be there for this. And so at the time last summer came with those changes, I was still focused on our international areas, and we were looking and bringing someone in that was really going to focus on kind of the marketing and background. And when Mark joined the company, his real forte, he was a White House fellow, which is an unbelievable honor and distinguished honor. And then as we got through all of the riots of those summer, we kind of looked at, do we have the right people in the right seats on the bus? And really, Mark was not living in the state, he was commuting. And we really needed somebody in Washington and working with government officials to make them aware of this, because ultimately they're going to be the ones to fund this through city councils, through mayors, through governors, through attorney generals, through ultimately the federal government providing Burns grants for policing. So we just felt at that time to make the change, get Mark to focus, and now our government affairs officer to really keep the company and him in particular focused on that area, and let me run the company. I lived here in town and work with him to continue to grow this. So there was kind of multiple steps there, but really my focus was international in the beginning, and even until we got into COVID in the summer. And that's when we really said, okay, this is going to be here for a while, so the travel is going to be restricted like it still is today. But at some point, I think that's going to come back around, and the majority of our business, almost 2/3 of it, was international, even last year with the COVID. So I think we've got the right people in the right seats on the bus now, and just very excited with the team we're building.
I was going to say, has there been any kind of, I understand the reasoning there. Has there been any other operational or strategic changes kind of in the past year, not just with management changes, but with COVID? You said that you guys already had a strong international presence. Was there a dipping away from the international in the meantime, or kind of more emphasis put there? Was there any kind of strategic changes because of COVID or because of these changes?
Well, from a strategic perspective, we work with distributors in the countries, and it's really, thank goodness that we did, because they're the ones that are continuing to keep that business going for us. So like everyone with COVID, obviously we aren't traveling. We've had to pivot to a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of video conference meetings, and that has really made a difference, especially through the fall. And even today, I spend a lot of late nights doing these meetings now virtually instead of in person with the distributor. So we have an excellent distributor network out there that's on the ground to be able to represent us. And so that's why we have not seen a fall off internationally. So kind of the same base is there working for us in that we're using distributors. We just have had to pivot to doing more virtual meetings when I cannot travel, and then bringing on one of our colleagues, Jags Gill, who's now living in London. Unfortunately, he's still been under travel restrictions, but I believe those are going to get lifted soon. And both of us have really been doing the virtual conversations with our distributors, because they're still having to work with the tenders, do the demonstrations. And even here in the United States, other than about 6 weeks last year when the COVID first hit, when everybody stopped traveling and went under lockdown, we've been able to continue to do demonstrations and trainings, because law enforcement are essential workers. So we've been able to support them in their efforts and continue to grow the business even through these turbulent times, albeit the COVID headwinds have certainly had an impact. But I think we've done a really nice job of working our way through that, kind of getting the virtual relationships going with the distributors, because that's been a change for everybody. Where if you had told me right before COVID that you're going to be talking to law enforcement who really need to see things in their hands, that we're going to be able to do a lot of this virtually, I would never have believed it, but it is the way of the world now. And so everybody has adapted. And I think we're doing a nice job with our partners.
Yeah, I think if you would have said to a lot of people what this past year has been like, people would have lost their minds before agreeing with you. So talk to us about what you guys have kind of not just coming up, but you've already started. You have some virtual training coming up or already being implemented, and some different things that you're bringing to the marketplace in addition to the BolaWrap. Do you want to talk about kind of where you're already heading and where you see kind of the next year to 2 years going in that direction?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, we're looking at the problems that are out there for law enforcement and trying to come up with technology and other solutions. So we're really working on a platform development right now of ways to provide not only the tools and the devices to help them do their jobs, but also the training to do it. So virtual reality is something that's really becoming on the forefront of everyone's minds now, and seeing where that's going. We were looking at this in 2019, and then at the end of 2020, we acquired a company called Incenna that was in the virtual reality space, and it doesn't train only on BolaWrap, it trains on all use of force, and it also trains on non-use of force. So we acquired that company in December. We're now integrating it again into this platform of providing solutions that it's not just tools, it's also verbal skills, it's also different ways of training the officers to get them more immersed in the material. One of the really interesting things about virtual reality training is when I put you inside that system, it's a complete change of your senses, right? It's a completely 360-degree immersive experience. And if you start to look at some of the statistics that PricewaterhouseCoopers has done some studies that show it's what may take 2 hours in a classroom, I can accomplish in a VR session in 35 minutes. So what does that mean for law enforcement? Well, that's direct labor savings, because over 90% of most police budgets are directly related to labor. So if I can take something that takes 2 hours and condense that to 30 minutes and have a 200+% better retention rate, 300% better experience with the material provided, it's not only a cost benefit savings, it's better at training for those officers. So we can do intervention training, bias training, all these different platforms, not only the tools that we provide, but kind of think of cadet to retirement. We're going to be able to provide training to those officers on a much more consistent, much more regular basis. And that's why I'm really excited about this platform that we're developing, because we're looking at a complete solution for, again, these very challenging solutions by providing the tools, by providing the training, working with experts to make sure that the training is there, and then providing it in a very cost-effective method for law enforcement so that it can be integrated, where instead of they show up at an academy once a year for a current training, this was something that they'll see maybe once or twice a week for 15 minutes at a time, and they're going to be getting much more training through their experience than they would have previously, which is really, the officers have an incredibly difficult job of not knowing what's going to happen, minute to minute with these scenarios, because you don't know what's going on in someone's head or what call they're going to get. So training is going to be critical, and to keep immersing them in it and keep reinforcing it, I think is going to help provide these solutions and these platform decisions for which tool, which decision, I don't have to use that. Somebody's doing something wrong, I need to intervene. First time they're going into a courtroom, we can give them that experience, or an interview room, or, it's really powerful what we're going to be able to deliver through this virtual reality training platform that we call Wrap Reality. And so again, I think as we're looking to the future, we're trying to stay on that leading edge of providing and using technology to enhance and provide better tools and soft skills for law enforcement that's going to make a real difference in their communities.
Do you feel like there's going to be follow-up on that people are testing kind of how much that is implemented by the police, right? Like the training is done, and then how much does that affect, better practices by the police force?
Absolutely. I mean, other than a sports athlete, I don't know, law enforcement's probably the highest quarterbacked, Monday morning quarterbacking, we call it, looking back at what they could have done or should have done. And it's done continually all the time. And I can tell you, one of the things in talking with law enforcement today that they're worried about is they don't want to be that next viral video of an excessive use of force or a bad use of force that gets, ruins their career, or even worse, not only for them, but for the subject. So it's something that's top of mind for all law enforcement officers is, how can I make sure I'm doing my job without becoming that next viral video? And by immersing them in this training and providing them more opportunities to continue to learn, maybe, using the past is the future guidance that we can incorporate into this training, because that's what they do today. It's all Monday morning quarterbacking, looking back, how did you do this? How should you have done it? Did you stay within policy? Did policy change? All of these factors we can incorporate into this training and really make it something that'll stick with the officers. So that's what I'm really excited about, what we're doing, again, with these technologies for the law enforcement community.
That's awesome. And in terms of adoption, how much adoption are you seeing across the states, and how much are you seeing internationally? And kind of, are you wanting to keep going to more and more countries? Are you trying to spread it? Are there countries that are like, no, this isn't for us? Are you seeing a cultural, issue in terms of some countries adopting it more than others? What's your take on that sense of things?
So from the company's perspective, we're brand new. We're 2 years old really in terms of the sales to law enforcement. So 2 years ago, next month is when we first had a manufactured BolaWrap. So it's a really early stage company, 18,000 agencies in the US, but we've already got 430 that are using this technology. So it is being adopted, albeit it's a little slower than it would have, I think, without COVID, but it is something that I'm seeing, especially compared to the Taser adoption that I saw. It's much quicker because it's an easier story to understand and it's not hurting people. And that's why also internationally, 38 countries have adopted it. So I think we have a lot of opportunity for growth, which is, again, what's really exciting. And then incorporating these other training platforms at this point in time is really going to be beneficial. And then internationally, we are even adding new countries, we added a couple of new ones recently. So we are still seeing adoption. I haven't really seen any negative trend against what we're providing. I think the challenge has just been to get to those countries that we haven't been able to visit in person yet, to get them the product, and then try and coordinate these virtual demos. I just did one yesterday and was very well received, and hopefully COVID restrictions will let me get there in the next couple of months and get our trainers there, because that's the key to this or any tool, is really providing good training. So the demonstration just piques their interest. It's really getting our instructors in there, working with their instructors for hands-on with the tool. How can it be used? What are the different situations? And really kind of looking at what they're dealing with on a local level and trying to show them how this can provide those solutions. And then also now bringing in Wrap Reality to incorporate those local challenges as well. So there's been some idiosyncrasies. For example, in the Arabic world, there's been a lot of change. We've done a lot of business there. And they're, if they're showing up with a BolaWrap, let's say maybe it's a female person that's in trouble, they'll have to have a female officer responding to that. So, it's trying to help coordinate and message those training tools to show them how this can help them, that they don't have to go hands-on right away. They can maintain their distance. They can then restrain somebody and then get them the help that they need. And then we incorporate that into a lot of the training that we're doing so that it's relevant for their local culture, not just something we're doing here in the United States. Even from the character play within the Wrap Reality, that they'll wear their traditional garb or the thobes in the Middle East, or different garments in Africa or different countries. So we can incorporate that, even driving on the other side of the road for our Australia, UK, and other India countries. We can put the vehicles on the other side of the road to really make it, relative to what they're doing and what they're seeing in their country.
And how does it work in terms of changing the product? In terms of what you said, like if the clothes are different, how does that work in terms of like capturing whoever the person is trying to capture? How does that work?
Well, from the technology perspective, our product loves clothing, because when you deploy it, it's got fish hooks on the end that capture the clothing. So in a lot of these scenarios, more clothing actually is helpful for us. So we do incorporate that, and we just test it for them when we're in country and show them on their traditional garb. It still works as planned, and be cautious of the hooks, because it might be harder to see them if they're embedded in the clothing. And then it's the same thing in the Wrap Reality, that we bring in those characters. We just recreate them in the traditional clothing that they'll be wearing as the person is seeing the suspect, to deal with them, so that it's again more immersive and not something that's really video game-ish, but much more realistic to what they're going through on a daily basis. So it's something we work on very closely and with our distributors, to make sure, again, the content is going to be relevant for the officers when they do either their work with the BolaWrap or with our Wrap Reality platform.
And there's been some discussion around the LAPD kind of extending their trial in terms of adopting this or using this, or how much they want to use this. I know you talked a little bit about this on the last call in terms of, past 2021, there isn't more of an update. Is there an update that you have now, or what's kind of going on with that extension?
There's not an update yet. I'm hopeful that there will be very soon. Obviously, we're in communication with LAPD quite frequently. And again, if you look at COVID, from where it came in March and all the lockdowns, they're in California, which is one of the more restrictive states that still is facing a lot of lockdowns. It really changed the way they're doing policing. So I believe they're going to be extending the trial still. They're going to kind of refocus their use of the tool, I think, to get a more use in a particular area. But they haven't announced anything to us or anything formally yet. So until they do that, I don't have any real specific updates. But my belief is that it's going to be a more extended trial as we come out of COVID and kind of come back to normalcy, because it was such an anomaly when we went through not only the protests, but the COVID lockdowns that just really changed the way policing's been done for the last 12 months. And so as we, again, come out of that period, hopefully that when they extend this trial, then they'll really get a good look at how it's working for them in their department.
But you haven't heard any like hesitancies, or you don't know of any reasons why it would be extended or why they wouldn't want to adopt it? Like, you don't hear reasons why we don't want to adopt it?
Not related to the product. It's, a lot of it is, again, related to COVID, because things have changed. And so obviously they didn't get as many uses in the field as they were looking for. So we're trying to work with them to make sure that they get that, so they get a good look at this, because it's obviously provided good success in the uses that they've had. And I think that's, again, that biggest thing when you look at the COVID lockdowns. Everybody was staying home. Nobody was out. So it really just changed policing, and the ones that were out with the protesting and things. This is, again, a tool that's used sometimes in those situations, but sometimes not. So I think we're going to help them make sure that they get the number of looks that they want. And that's why I believe they'll be extending the trial, but we don't have anything definitive yet.
And do you have a sense of do you have a target number of, police departments that you're looking to adopt these practices, either in the training or in using the BolaWrap? Is that something that you point to and say, this is something that we're targeting? Or are you right now trying to kind of like spread the gospel in terms of a new way of doing things, and more concentrating on building that scope right now and that scale, and later kind of being more concerned with hitting specific targets?
Yeah, well, obviously my target is for all police officers to be carrying this. So the plan then is, how do we do the blocking and tackling to get there? And so you're exactly right. What we're doing right now is really focused on getting agencies to use this, get them in the field, let them see how it works. Because there's two things that really have changed for us, especially in the last, I'd say 3 to 4 months. Number one, getting over 400 agencies, that's over 2%. So that's a kind of a tipping point if you look at law enforcement in the United States in terms of agencies that have this technology. And then number two is, now that we're able to get body cams from actual field uses, it's not just a practical theory that they're seeing in demonstration. Now we can go in and educate them with real uses by law enforcement in the field and how it made a difference for them. So we've released, a half a dozen, I think, body cam videos so far, because some agencies release them and some don't. I know of one agency, I'd love to release one of their body cams where they actually wrapped a guy 3 times at once. And the reason I would highlight that one is because, again, you're not putting anything into their body. So it was a higher risk situation, and they 3 officers deployed simultaneously. It didn't increase the risk to the suspect, because we're not putting, again, anything into their body to potentially hurt them. So it really shows the efficacy of being able to use this in certain different ways than maybe they had thought. Again, without hurting that person, being able to get them help. But we can talk about it, but I don't have that body cam yet. But the other body cams that we do have really are showcasing, how this is being used by law enforcement. We just had one in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, of a suspect that was clearly in a crisis. He was walking in and out of traffic, and they were able to use this to get him, wrapped and stopped from walking into traffic, potentially hurting himself or causing an accident. And then the officers, again, did a great job through training of communicating with the suspect and everyone involved about what was going on and how they can get him help. And, the one that really sticks home for me, especially being a parent, is one of our uses from body cam in Florida, where a mother called police to help, where her son wanted to, what they call suicide by cop. They wanted the police to come and shoot him in the mother's driveway in front of her house. So, if the BolaWrap hadn't been there, or that person had been successful, imagine being a parent that you're calling police to help your son, and then watching the police shoot and kill your son in your own driveway. I can't even imagine that. And so they were able to successfully use the BolaWrap to wrap this, the individual, and then get him the help that he needs. And then the communication between the officers with the mother and the suspect, it really highlighted the training and the professionalism that's out there and the way our tool can be used. So it's, again, emphasizing that wrap reality training, why that platform is so exciting for the future, that we could now recreate that scenario and using it as a training tool, as you said, looking back at a success here that we can incorporate into training for other officers to learn without having to hopefully ever go through that experience. But if they do see it, this is a way that we were able to end that, get that person help instead of it going the other way and being, unfortunately, a really bad video.
Yeah, and I feel like it also highlights, the stories that you just mentioned really highlights the complicated nature of the business that you're in, which is, it's a really difficult thing to navigate all of these different scenarios. It's not like a shiny, happy solution in many of these scenarios. It's kind of the lesser of the worst scenarios, I think. And that must be tough to tackle in terms of in terms of bringing it to consumers or bringing it to the public marketplace and trying to show why something works in something that is kind of a hard conversation to navigate, I think, in the first place. There's so many, personal feelings around it. Do you work with advocacy groups, or, because I feel like the message that you have is a powerful one that I feel like advocacy groups would want to adopt. And yet I wonder if some of the messaging is lost because of kind of the fiery emotional part that comes with it. Is that something that you guys are spending time on or think about or already doing?
Oh, 100%, because the advocacy groups are super vocal, right? And they're the ones that really raise attention to certain matters and apply a lot of that pressure. So we do try to figure out how can we work with them, and obviously not all of them are going to like our solution, but some of their desires of just not using any force just isn't realistic. And so we have to balance what they're doing with providing the solutions to make a difference and provide answers, because again, some of these things that the groups want, especially the extreme groups, just aren't realistic for the real world. It's going to get somebody hurt and killed on both sides. So we do listen to them. We do try to work with them. We do community presentations to educate them so that they do know what the BolaWrap is and that they can speak to it. Not everybody comes up and gives me a hug, but I think they can come to a mutual understanding of what we're trying to do. And then, when they're having these conversations and voicing these concerns, again, we're going to be involved in providing a solution for that and hopefully lower the rhetoric down so we can focus on how do we solve these difficult problems, knowing that, going to an extreme of defunding police, let's say, just isn't an option, because there are people out there with bad intent, and law enforcement are the ones that are going to have to deal with that. Luckily for us, there's people that want to do that. So we need to provide them the tools to do it safely, do it effectively, but also how do we get those people that are in a crisis, like my mom that has Alzheimer's, that, attacked my dad, and we just need to get her to stop that and get her the help that she needs. So there's different ways now that we're looking at maybe sending, instead of police first, let's try a mental health responder. But if they go in there without anything to protect themselves too, we don't want them to get hurt. So, there's always different sides that need to be looked at and need to be addressed. And that's where we kind of fit and believe we're a great match in the middle to listen to the advocates, to listen to the, whoops, did I get kicked off?
No, you're still here.
Okay, just making sure. It blipped, so I apologize. But we kind of fit there in the middle to listen and talk with the advocacy groups, also to work with law enforcement to try and solve those problems, to let them address that, hey, we are solving these problems and we're listening and we're going to change the way we're doing and using force. So they are a key part to this and something that we're trying to get more involved with. But, some of the groups just, they've got their mission and they're on it, and I get that. But, at least we're trying to involve in the conversation and be a part of those conversations within the communities and with those groups.
And do you feel sometimes like, because of what you said, like these issues that we've had and, people feel like there's been, racial prejudices that have been a part of these things. Do you feel like once you put a human face to kind of what you guys are doing, that automatically opens up the conversation in a different way?
Sometimes, again, I don't think everybody completely understands it. And I think that's something that as we get into this virtual reality platform, maybe we can help and put them into that experience and show them, sometimes you don't have a lot of options there. And these are you do have to use force in these instances, especially if somebody is, if there is literally just a bad person that the police are going to have to deal with. So I think, again, with the solutions and the platforms we're providing, we're going to be able to help provide that education, not only for law enforcement, but for some of these advocacy groups as well, or even if it goes into, let's say, a trial, that we can let the jurors see firsthand, what the officers are experienced, what their training is, and again, these are things I'm hoping for the future with this, but I do have big plans for what virtual reality can do, and working with the advocacy groups to let them see this, and maybe they don't like the way it's being done. They can help craft the solution instead of just complaining about the problem. Let's try and maybe get them more involved, working with the community to come up with that solution. And I'm hopeful that we're going to get there. And I think that's how this technology can really play a role in these situations going forward.
And have you found, for the most part, when you're talking to law enforcement, that they're open to kind of, I guess, being more open, that they're open to more of this dialogue and more of this kind of exposure and ability to kind of do things a different way? Yes,
very much so. I mean, again, especially the law enforcement leadership that's coming in today is very amenable to having these conversations, and you definitely see that within different communities where they're out talking with the different groups. And that's one of the things that is exciting, is that even though they're a government agency and they don't move as fast as anybody would like, including themselves, they are receptive and they do respond to change. It's just very slow. They're not like the tech sector where you're going to see things happen overnight. These are government agencies. They're run by governments, being the city councils or the mayors and things. So they do change slowly, but they are certainly open to change and having those conversations. And they're always looking for ways to do their job, let their officers go home safe, get their suspects home safe. And so they're very collaborative with us when we're coming out with these ideas to take a good look at it, give us the feedback. For example, when the BolaWrap first came out 4 years ago, and they took it and showed an agency, they gave them, a list of 3 pages of things to improve, which ultimately got most of that incorporated to get us the product that we have today. So even with today's product, we want to get that voice of the customer involved to give us the feedback on what do they want to see change, what do they like, what don't they like, so that we can continue to develop and evolve the technology to make it better and better. And that's what tech is about, and bringing technology to these problems is to continue evolvement of it, going into reality with virtual reality for training, and not just training BolaWrap, but training all their use of force, and bringing in experts to provide the material and the content to make sure that the training is done in the right way. So I don't have to be the expert in it. I can just use technology to take that knowledge and then be able to transfer it successfully to the students. That's where we really see ourselves fitting into this and really making a difference with this platform.
And you guys have former police officers on staff, is that right?
We do. So we have retired officers that are on staff, especially in the training areas, that go out and do the demonstrations and the training. We also work with still active duty police officers that take their vacation time off to come and work with us and do trainings or give us feedback. So, we spend a lot of time working with the law enforcement community, again, to have their involvement, and then also the advocacy groups more and more to get their involvement and their comments about the technology and what they would like to see. So we are trying to make sure that we use, the community voice to help shape where we're going with this. And then we're looking at ways to bring the technology, again, to solve these very difficult problems.
So in the midst of all of these discussions of kind of like how hard it is to navigate this space and the management changes, you guys are still doing like really well in terms of revenue and sales. How difficult is it to navigate through COVID and this marketplace and management changes? How has it been to be able to not just maintain, but surpass and grow? How difficult has that been to navigate? And how much is that a reflection, do you think, of the power of what you are doing, that even despite the challenges, you guys are still kind of hitting record numbers right now?
Yeah, it's been, I think everybody would agree, there's never been a more challenging time with COVID and all the adaptation that everybody's had to make, from working from home, from the lockdowns, from everything going to video conference. And then how do you, just complete life is different today than it was with pretty much from every aspect. And everybody's had to adapt to that. So it's for a business, it's super challenging to do that and look at ways to, use, again, the technology of virtual conferencing to incorporate and continue to grow the business and provide the tools to continue to work with our research and development teams and get that next technology worked on and continue to provide the current tools. So And then you look at, for a company our size to have 3 management changes in each of the last quarters, certainly though, investors want to see stability. So I think we've got the company stable now, and we made some changes and got the right people in the right seats. So I think that was something that we did, that certainly distracted us a little bit, but I think we were able to work through that, continue that quarter-over-quarter growth, continue to manage the company very well despite the challenges of management changes. And I think, again, that just shows the caliber of people that we have here at the company, and then also the customers that we work with, that they know that this product's going to make a difference for them. So now that we've kind of got our internal stuff sorted out, we can really focus again on making sure we're continuing to execute, which, again, the employees have just done a fantastic job on that. Our investors supporting us, the continued growth of law enforcement. That's why I'm really excited about it. And I've seen this before, right? Back at Taser, the growth that we had when we first started in law enforcement in the early 2000s, I've seen this film before, let's say, and I know how it's going to progress, and seeing this even go quicker because it's an easier story to understand, and us bringing in the Wrap Reality and making it part of a platform, instead of just the BolaWrap, I think, again, really is going to be something exciting for us and be able to really grow and move the company as we go forward. And I think that international market is just so exciting. It's 12 times the size of the US market. It was 2/3 of our revenue. And I think, again, for the next several years, it's going to continue to be the majority of our revenue, just due to its sheer size being 12 times the size of the US market, and the US just being slow with the government oversight of the 18,000 agencies out there. They just, again, don't move quickly, but they are adapting and moving forward with our technology. So I think we've done a really good job of the navigation, despite the challenges that we've had on management changes, as well as the external environment changes of COVID and all the protests. So I think we're doing a good job, and I'm excited to continue to do that and to continue to grow the company and get all the officers using this, so we can change the way we hopefully can reduce the number of viral videos of people really getting hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's really the core of it. Absolutely. Kind of reiterating what you said in terms of the growth that you've seen and kind of the changes that you've made. You also had a ticker change pretty recently, and I'm not sure if the name change was official, but it seemed like you guys dropped the technologies. I don't know if that's just more like a branding or an official change. But was that kind of wanting to cement yourselves in a new way, in a new iteration almost?
Absolutely. So we are still Wrap Technologies, but
Okay.
The fact that we were able to get our domain, to type out wraptechnologies.com, that's a lot to type out. So we were able to change everything to Wrap. So WRAP.com, our ticker symbol's WRAP. So everything now is centered around Wrap. So we have the BolaWrap, we have Wrap Reality. So we've been able to really focus on the word Wrap in a variety of ways from a marketing perspective, but the company's Wrap Technologies, we have the family of BolaWrap products as we come out with future generations of it. We have Wrap Reality that's going to be around the virtual reality training and other training scenarios that we're doing. We have our Wrap Training Academy. So we are using Wrap, our 4-letter identifier there, as kind of a central theme within the marketing, to not only describe the company, but to describe family products, training products, and make it really easy to communicate with us with wrap.com now for email addresses. So there were a variety of reasons around getting that very exciting for us. But to your point, it's really about the brand, right? So Taser is known around the world. Even though the company is now called Axon, everybody knows Taser, or it's a Coca-Cola, or any of those brand names. Wrap is really what we want people to stick with, from, again, the BolaWrap products, the Wrap Reality Training, Wrap the company, Wrap Technologies, the formal name. Wrap really is going to be a centerpiece for our marketing, and we revamped the website and all of our messaging around Wrap being that central theme, and I think it's really going to help people. It's going to help them stick with them easier.
The other thing that I find interesting about your guys' emphasis is how much emphasis you put on R&D and how many IPs that you guys are trying to accumulate. It almost makes me think of you guys, like, how would you even describe the company? Like, because it's not just a consumer, it's not just for law enforcement, it's really almost like a full service entity. And now that you guys are developing so much of the R&D, kind of where do you see it going forward? What's your long-term view of Wrap?
Well, we are investing in research and development because, again, as I look at the technology platform, and you kind of go back to the human basics, security and somebody feeling safe is something that's very primitive, right? To early days, nobody wants to get hurt, nobody wants to be threatened, and security is a key theme for everybody around the globe. So WRAP, as I look to the future, we're investing in R&D because we want to be able to provide that to private security, to school teachers, to maybe that college student that's walking across campus that doesn't feel comfortable with the other options that are out there. And ultimately, my mom was one of those people. She was not comfortable with a firearm. She wasn't comfortable with pepper spray. She ended up having dogs, when we were traveling, to be able to stay home and protect her. So we're looking at the ways we can utilize technology to provide that feeling of security, that if you do have to use it, it's not truly a life or death decision in deploying that system, but rather giving them the choice to be able to stop somebody, not hurt them, but get yourself to help so that you don't hesitate and you can use it to protect yourself. So our research and development as we look to the future is on the technology tool side. How can we provide this for everybody to be able to feel safe and not have to hurt somebody? And then on the training side, how do we continue to evolve the training? And maybe somebody's wanting to come into this career as a law enforcement officer, that we could have them go into a virtual reality experience to really see if it's for them and see what it's like. And, potentially, again, training officers at home so they don't even have to go into the precinct to do this or go to the academy. So I think as we're evolving the technology of what we're doing at WRAP, we're looking at a variety of different assets, from the advancement of the BolaWrap family as well as the advancement of the WRAP Reality family to broaden where we are beyond today. Because again, nobody thought we'd all be doing virtual conferences a year ago. So who knows where we're going to be in another year? And technology has to look at these problems and then try and use that tech development to provide solutions for not only now, but for where we're going in the future. And I think that's why you see a very robust research and development spend by our company, because we do have an incredibly strong balance sheet that affords us the chance to look beyond where we are today and start working on those next generation solutions. And the same thing with the training. How do we even make the training better so that it's more user-friendly and a better experience? Because no matter how good the training is, if it's not a good experience for the learner, then that student, they're not going to use it. So we really are focused not only the content, but the experience for them and the convenience to make it easy so that they can really get what they need to do their job safely and effectively.
The virtual reality part, adding that, it makes me feel like it's the next layer to your vision watching Star Wars and Star Trek. Like it's the next part of developing that kind of sci-fi reality in a business model, which must feel great. Like, as looking back on your younger self with your brother, do you guys ever sit back and think to yourselves like, wow, I can't believe like what we actually did in terms of what we were able to accomplish? Do you guys ever sit back and talk about that at all?
Yes, because, we never envisioned, even when you look at what you think the future is going to be, it never goes that way, right? Even, you think it's going to go from A to B and it goes A, Z, B before you get there. So, but it is really cool. I can, some of my coolest experiences even today are when I was able to travel, and I've done a few trips even this year, and you land in an international country and you see the tool that you provided to police on their belt. They don't have any idea that I was the one that may have brought it there, but I know that technology is there because it's making a difference for them in that job. So I do get some of those surreal movements, or to see it even where Hollywood, they do have a lot of creative forward looking. So that's where a lot of ideas get inspired from. And then to see them incorporate our technology into even some of the movies or television, which we're starting to see with the BolaWrap and previously with Taser's obviously still been there. But we do sit back and, it's kind of humbling to look at what we've been able to accomplish, and then super exciting about what I think the future is going to hold, and the way we can take technology and continue to be involved and make a difference and change the world. And it's very few people get to say that they had a chance to do that. And I am lucky enough to not only have done it with Taser, but a chance to do it again with BolaWrap and then again with WRAP Reality. So it's something that gets me out of bed every day, that I'm super excited about. And it is a pretty cool feeling to see it affect not only here in the United States, but all over the world.
So, considering that this is a CEO interview series, and considering like following on the heels of that kind of success, especially internationally and culturally, what do you feel like was the most essential thing you learned that has made you a good CEO that you've learned along the way?
Definitely surround yourself with people that are smarter than you are, and you know, you don't, you obviously as CEO you're going to have to be aware of everything that's going on in the business. But the fact that I've got incredible colleagues to work with me and help grow, it's yeah, I'm like the head coach or the leader, but at the same time, I wouldn't be there without the team. So it's not only the team of the employees that I get to work with, it's also the team of the customers, right? That they have problems that we listen to. So we need to be very open to listening to their problems, and we don't always get it right. I'll be the first to admit that, right? We're human. So it's being able to work with them and keep those relationships and have that communication to how can we, again, bring technology to solve the problems that they're having, and then work with an incredible team here at Wrap to be able to provide those problems. So to be able to work on research and development down to the production people that are putting these things together, that they have to work each and every time in the field so that somebody's life literally is depending on that product performing. So, you know, having the quality standards and the right team to be able to implement that is really exciting. So for me, it's surrounding myself with great people, listening to the customer, and then continuing to try and evolve and give guidance for the direction that we're going, and then let the whole team perform with our customers to provide those solutions.
And do you feel like, this might be putting you on the spot, but do you feel like there's anything that you've had to let go of from when you started until now that you thought was an important, you know, trait of being a CEO, or something that you felt like was working and you've since kind of decided that it's not working as well?
I think the hardest thing for me has been I like to do a lot of these activities. You know, I really enjoy the process, and is to step back and let others do it, because I don't have to do everything. So you know, that was a hard thing to do because I really enjoy that. So for me to be able to step back and really do what I need to do as CEO and make sure everybody's working together and you know, sharing information across the company and making sure that everybody's getting the resources that they need to do their job. That's what I need to be focused on, is really that future, where we're going, give that direction, you know, working with the board, the customers, the employees. So for me, getting out of some of the specific activities of the process, it's been something that I still struggle with today, because I really enjoy it. That if I get that phone call, you know, I love that adrenaline kick of helping them solve that problem. So trying to get others involved and doing that is been something that, you know, it's hard to do, but it's the right thing for the long-term growth of the company. And it's helped me grow as a person to learn to be able to do that, and then to step back and provide that leadership that I do have experience, and can help guide others that are young, that are coming into the company, and also even with law enforcement, to listen to their needs that maybe are different than the needs they were even 10 years ago, and make sure we're adapting to all of those challenges and getting that information to the right people to help solve, again, those problems. So for me, it's more about now I'm becoming a connector and managing everybody to get them all going in the right direction. And that's a great learning opportunity and growth opportunity for myself, as well as giving up some things that I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's such a great way of putting it. I think that's a really good way of looking at what a leader really is, because it's not somebody that's, well, in a certain way, they're in charge of everything, but they don't have their hand in everything. And I think exactly what you're saying, it's not something that at least I necessarily always think about when I think about a leader, is the need to step back even, which is interesting, and let the people that you've hired, talented people, to do their thing. I like it. I like it very much. Tom, anything you want to leave investors with, or prospective investors with, that you feel like they don't know about Wrap, or they should know about Wrap, or something you want to end with? Happy to give you the last word.
So obviously I'm very passionate, if you can't tell, very excited about what we're doing as a company. And I think we're still very, very young. You know, we have a lot of expectations on us, and we are in an industry with incredible challenges, and we're solving these really difficult problems. And I think that's what the investors that we have are, you know, supporting a company that is solving real world problems and very, very difficult problems. And, you know, all the different investor groups that I talk to, that some are deciding whether they should invest in us and want to put their money behind what we're doing. I can tell you there's no more rewarding success than what we are providing these solutions for these police officers that are going to have a direct impact of not being that next viral video, stopping people without hurting them, giving these officers training so that the communities are safer, they're more protected, people aren't getting hurt. And so it's something I'm obviously super excited about, and just I think that the future for WRAP is really an exciting time because it's early. You know, we're in still the early innings of the game, as I say, because we don't have that broad expansion yet. And it's a new technology, and then we got a lot of exciting future technologies and future partnerships coming up with. So for our investors, we really appreciate the support and want to see more and more of them get involved. So tell your friends about us, and you know, it's something, again, that's very viral, and I hope WRAP's going to become as synonymous as Taser is within law enforcement around the world. And you know, again, I'm just blessed with the team that we have of employees and colleagues, the current shareholders, future shareholders, as well as our customers, that we just, it's such a great group to be working with. And it's a high pressure situation, right? I mean, law enforcement is, as you said, there's no bigger spotlight than on what maybe professional sports athletes go through that the law enforcement goes through. And working with them in my entire career, I've just been really blessed and lucky to do it, and excited to lead WRAP forward. And I think it's a really exciting future for the company.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting company to watch, a really interesting story to look at. So Tom, thank you so much again for sharing your time and your insights. I really appreciate it. And I feel like we've given Seeking Alpha followers of WRAP a lot of food for thought. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.